Casting. Okay. Mariagrazia Lauricella. So I apologize, Maria. I tried to run this by you sooner. I struck the full name struggles. I'm going to call you Maria because that's how I think of you. But you gave me permission to do that. So I really appreciate that. Good to see you, by the way. We've been talking all day, so it's like really funny to like cut into our conversation, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny? And so where do I find you right now? Calgary?
Well, I'm 2 hours southwest of Calgary. So Lethbridge, Canada.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so
where I am right now.
Right. And so you're not like you're over there in that kind of western side of Canada, like not far from Vancouver and Seattle.
Not too far. No, not
too far. What's the name of that big state park right there? You're up against the Rocky Mountains. What's the big park called?
Yeah, what everyone knows is Banff.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful place. Right. I went there the first time I visited here.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. Mm-hmm.
So you go between you live part-time in Canada, part-time in Tampa Bay, Florida, right? And then part in Argentina, right?
Well, Canada's the newest part.
Got it.
I usually do 50% in Safety Harbor, Florida, which is near Tampa, and then 50% in Argentina as of 2018.
Yeah. And by the way, we're not as far apart as you might imagine. I'm from Safety Harbor in the Tampa Bay area. I'm closer. I meant to tell you that we're closer than you might imagine. But then again, I don't know when you might be there. So you're doing this Canada, Calgary, way over there, Tampa Bay thing, and then the Argentina thing. Yeah. So really, I'm excited to have you. Thank you for being a guest tonight. And this is really an honor. I've been basically stalking and tracking you for years, and we've been friends. We were introduced to a mutual friend, Crystal, right? Crystal. Mm-hmm. And I think I sent this to her tonight. I'm hoping she's watching, but she recently had a baby, and she's got her hands full, but she's a wonderful, wonderful person. And I really appreciate her introducing me to you. So I've been really fascinated with you as an entrepreneur and this whole social entrepreneuring that you've been doing for so many years. And I thought your story was pretty good until I asked you to send me your bio. And I was like, whoa. Oh, by the way, we have to do something here.
Okay.
All right, hold on. We got to start this thing off correctly. You can see I'm a bit of an amateur here, so. Yeah, we got to do this. Yeah. While that's playing.
Happy hour to everyone.
Yeah. I'm not cutting that short because I love it too much.
Melanie, it is Eye of the Tiger, but it's the original.
Right. So I was informed of this tonight, and I had no idea. This is Gloria Gaynor, and I had no idea that that this was the original Eye of the Tiger. I'm really embarrassed to say this because I'm known in my family as the music trivia person, and what's really sad. Hold up.
Yeah. That's right.
Now, what's really embarrassing for me on this is probably one of my favorite songs as a kid, and from my generation. And obviously, how this I did not know this was a cover all this time is impossible to me, right? So thank you for breaking that down for me. And I kind of like it there in the background a little bit. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. And so that's going to be the theme of the night. And I should have made that the cover slide, Eye of the Tiger. Mm-hmm. But this is how we're going to kick this off. And again, I want to get into your story. So here's the format of the show. I basically interview you a little bit podcast style and get your background and your story. And then we're going to transition into specific ideas that we have for people out there right now in this new economy and ways that they can be creative around income streams and business ideas, right? But first of all, I want to get your background, your story. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of throw up this presentation, right? I'm calling it. Wait a minute! I did better than I thought on the cover slide.
So good.
I forgot that I actually I threw this together within an hour ago. I forgot that I actually covered my base. So this is Survivorpreneurship, and I don't even think that's. I don't know. I feel like I coined that word. By the way, I've never seen you
coin that.
You can't invent anything on the internet. So I'm sure that it exists, right? So let me move my little pod to the side, and I'm going to start with our sponsor. So we've got a sponsor, and this is a Tampa Bay based company called Secure Startup. And what they do is they provide a platform for early stage startup companies to be able to put their documents out and manage how they interact with investors, right? So when you're raising money for a company, a lot of, that's what I do in my day job is I help Tampa Bay based companies raise capital with the Tampa Bay Wave. And we struggle with all these documents in terms of, making sure who's getting the documents when, and is it for their eyes only? And then can they control that and manage through that process? There's, believe it or not, there's very few platforms out there that do that well to make sure that that's really done secure in a very controlled way. And it's really important because as a startup, you're sharing your financials, you're sharing your projections, you're sharing your trade secrets, right? You're sharing a lot of important things. So you need to be able to control who sees that. And that's what Secure Startup does. And they're sponsoring this podcast and this webcast. And what's really cool is I got a call out of the blue that they wanted to actually sponsor this. So I wasn't looking for a sponsor. Now I'm excited because now I'm like, okay, who's next? Who wants to sponsor after Secure Startup?
That's great.
It's kind of blessed. It's a real blessing, right? It's a real blessing. So that's our sponsor, and there'll be more at the end. You'll be able to follow on emails. You'll be able to get a link to check out their platform. Okay, so first of all, just quickly about me. And, I teach entrepreneurship at the University of South Florida, top 10 entrepreneurship program in the country. Look it up. It's actually true. Ranked by Entrepreneurship Magazine and Princeton Review. Also, I do some time at the University of Tampa's Entrepreneurship Center, the Loth Tampa Entrepreneurship Center, which is incredible, prestigious entrepreneurship center where I do some volunteering there as an entrepreneur residence working with student founders. The Tampa Bay Wave Startup Accelerator, which is my true love, aside from my wife of 25 plus years. The Tampa Bay Wave Startup Accelerator, where we've helped well over 200 companies in the last 10 years, and we've helped them raise lots of money and lots of support. We have over 100 mentors and almost 300 investors in our network, and we currently have a little over 50 companies in the accelerator. And that's the Tampa Bay Wave. So it's one of the largest startup accelerators in the country. My career has been half corporate, half entrepreneur. So that's why I feel like I have a unique position to be able to connect with people that are still in their jobs and people that are, have already made the leap. But I'm really focusing my life now on people that are still in their jobs and helping them understand how to make the leap. And if it's for them, by the way, if it's for them, what does it take? What do they should be preparing and planning for? In my book that I just finished, where's my book? I should be plugging it. My book is called Quit to Start, and I wrote this in a very audacious. My producer is handing me my book. How about that? This is my book. I have to plug my book, Maria, right? Yes, so 100%. And my sister, by the way, who lives in Seattle, that's only a few hours from you, helped design this cover. Right. And the idea is, right, that, quit to start. And this was really kind of represented my attitude about it, where I've done this a few times. And ultimately, entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial mindset folks know what I'm talking about. They stay frustrated in their jobs. It's hard to work for other people when you have an entrepreneurial mindset. Maria, can I get an amen?
Amen.
Right? Okay. So it's really hard to work for other people. By the way, there's nothing wrong with the boss. There's nothing wrong with the company. There's nothing wrong with the coworkers. It's not about them. There's nothing wrong with those people, even though you kind of feel that there's something wrong with them. It's not them. It's you, right? You're the one with the disease. You have the entrepreneurial disease, the entrepreneurial mindset. So you ultimately, you can either suffer forever or you can come to grips with the fact that you probably need to start something. And then you need to actually understand the game and how the game works and where the game ends and how it gets played and what kind of a plan it takes to get there. And so that's what the book is about. Quit to start. I usually use the quit thing to get your attention, but the book, actually, the opening chapter says, "Don't quit." Don't quit your job immediately. Like,
not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Exactly. And that's one of the cool things about your story, Maria, how you did your exit. So I'm dedicated to others through my site called it's called Plan Your Start, but I said, Plan Their Start is plural. But I have a website called Plan Your Start. And the reason I did that, by the way, is because the quit thing is so provocative, right? And a lot of people weren't comfortable, like, even joining my LinkedIn group because it was like quit to start. Like, they didn't want their employer to see that, right? And it's like, you kind of like, so my book is kind of like the little secret bad boy, like the little, dirty, no, wrong word, guilty pleasure, not the guilty pleasure book, right? But I'm using like Plan Your Start as the safe place that we can go. So this webcast is raw and unrehearsed, as demonstrated in the past 30 seconds, right? And this is, by the way, we're on week 3, and I've not done many of these, so we're kind of learning as we go. So that's a little bit about me. And so let's talk about Maria. So Maria, this is where I get to interview you. By the way, we've got a lot of folks out there right now.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, this is awesome. And I'm going to look at the chat room real quick. So cool. Let me take a quick look. Thank you. Art says he read my book, and I talk about 3 types of entrepreneurs in the book: type A, type B, type C. By the way, type A is like a classic type A, the person that you just know is like going to crush it. They're just kind of crush it. Type B is the analytical, clinical, like plotting. They're plotting their escape, and okay, right. Type C is the one that's lacking some confidence, who knows that they may or may not have it in them. They always dream of it. They're kind of like would love the idea of it. They just don't necessarily. They just kind of like don't have necessarily the confidence or the knowledge and the skill. So they're type C. Art says he's been all 3 types at the same time. Okay, so we've got a lot of cool people. What we're going to do is we're going to jump back into this, and I want to learn about Maria. So Maria, I feel like I want to play Gloria Gaynor again, but I'm not going to do that because I feel like that's the proper. You need walk-in. Hold on. You need walk-in music.
Walk-in.
Hold on, wait for that. All right. Okay, good. That's walk-in music, which is the boxing reference. So your first job. So the whole idea here is for you to tell your story, and I'm going to pull the story out of you, and then we're going to transition pretty quickly into some ideas for today that we're going to share with people. So your first job, 12 years old. Wait, that's not legal.
Totally not legal. Doesn't matter.
All right, let's hear it.
I just want to thank you so much. Thank you for having me on here. And
this is great.
You said that you've been stalking me and like watching my work, but I've been just so amazed at everything you're doing and just watching Tampa grow, and you're at the epicenter of it. And so just thank you for everything you're doing, and just an inspiration beyond belief. So
thank you. Hey, I want to interject real quick and say, we said a little prayer before this started, so I thought that was pretty cool as well. So you really set the tone before we turned the cameras on. So that was great.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So I don't think anything's just coincidental. So I'm excited to be here. And so I did it. 12.
Wait a minute, 12 years old. You must be exaggerating.
No. I was born in Italy, and my family are all immigrants, and hard work was just part of what we did and who we are. I mean, right? So the American dream was very much ingrained in our culture, and going to work at 12, it wasn't like a thing that you just did it because it's like kind of what you did. I don't know how else to describe it, but babysitting and then working at a carnival, which was the coolest thing ever. So yes, you can call me a carny. I've been called that before. And it was wonderful because the people I worked for, they actually have a very, very, really cool story. They were all firefighters. Mm-hmm. And on the summer, in the summertime, they had these rides, and it was now looking back in hindsight, the entrepreneurial just grit to them and the kind of money they were making, unbelievable. And I was making so much money at that age. Like I was just bringing home, was quite remarkable. At 14 years old, 13, it was 13 when I started with them, I think 13. Yeah. And every weekend just bringing home cash. And, it was like, okay, we can do this. Right. And so from there, it just work was a part of my life. And I did school. I was leader and captain of most of my, teams. And that, like, I think just translated into my life as being some sort of head of something, and kind of sometimes to fall too bossy and, that kind of like little nasty brat, I'm sure that was there. And
I don't see it. I don't see it. I can usually see it. I can tell you, I don't see it, just so you know.
Well, I mean, I think I just had an episode with my CTO and I was like, oh my God, that was nasty.
Yeah, but with like a real big smile and stuff. So it's not the same.
Oh. Well, we'll see what he says, but no, needless, it's pretty cool. I started at 12 and I think that it just taught me something really powerful. My mom, and I'll say it right from the get-go, my mother from as far back as I can remember, she always said, work hard for what you want and never rely on anyone else. And yes, she was in corporate, but she worked her tail off with, I don't even think she graduated high school. And she worked her tail off and got to top levels at a huge bank in New York City. And I just watched that. And I watched my father work multiple jobs to provide. And between the two of them, it was just like, you work for what you want. And you just don't let someone else dictate that,
So tell me, you tell me you were a C student. You're right, until you took a business class.
Yeah. I was, at uni and I was going to be a phys ed teacher. And the logic that I took was I can be a teacher. So I was going to be I was a phys ed major. And I said, I can be a teacher because that's in me to teach. I can be a teacher. And then on the weekends and during the summer breaks, I could run a business.
Yes.
That was my logic. So I had some safety and financial security. But then I could always do what I've always wanted to do, which was own a business. And a C student, just I had test anxiety taking, all sorts of weird stuff. And finally, I took my first business class and I just, flying colors, top of the class. And I realized like, all right, I'm good at this. And I just had this.
Like it was your ability to communicate and pitch the room and connect with people? What do you think it was, the business plan itself? I mean, just be honest. I
think it was the idea of coming up with this concept and all the little parts.
Yeah.
Seeing it come to life. I think it was the building side of it. And it was an idea that you could just have. You can have this thought and actually create something.
Okay.
And I just was fascinated.
This was wait a minute. This was to foretell things. This was a social enterprise. A Brazil-based social enterprise at that point, right? And this,
it was. Yeah, they told us we had to create it in an emerging market. And at that point, when in 2000, however it was, I'm terrible with years, by the way, guys. But whenever it was in 2000s, the emerging market was Brazil, and I chose Brazil. I've always loved Latin America. I've always been called there, and sure enough, I did there was two businesses we did: a bridal business, recession proof, and a like modeling agency, bartender kind of thing, agency there as well. And because that was my background.
Yeah. And, where were you living at that time?
In New York.
In New York. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. You were in New York at that time. Okay. Yeah. So I got the bartender in there, events and weddings. So wait a minute, let's jump ahead to this travel agent art sales thing. So how did that come to be?
Well, I went into business. I graduated marketing and entrepreneurship, which entrepreneurship was so new. It was like a taboo thing.
Yeah. Right. It's like the thing in the back office
so weird.
They didn't have office. No, they didn't have staff or faculty. Right. I know.
It was an add-on. It was an add-on actually.
Misfits over there. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you guys, we don't know what to do with. And so, but it worked. It worked really well. And I graduated and, I graduated with a focus on fashion and fashion history. And so that's why the bridal industry, I kind of went toward that way. Again, I thought recession proof. everyone gets married, and I loved fashion and I love fashion. So I went that route, I was studying in St. Pete with a wonderful designer, another wild entrepreneur, Ivanka Ska. And I was studying under her, and I took the summer off and I went and traveled for 4 months. And that was the end of it. I was like, this is what I need to do. I need to go and travel, right? I need to show people what the world's like, because I just experienced an incredible journey. And from there, I went and sought out some travel agencies, and I said, so I settled with one in Tampa, and I worked there for a few years, and it was sales. It was sales.
Yeah.
And that owner, she taught me tons. She taught me tons as well. And from there, I realized it wasn't for me, because being a travel agent is very different than creating an experience for someone. Someone would just call me and say, hey, I want to take my family on a cruise. And it's like, no, you should go to Italy and, ride a car, drive through the country.
You didn't want to give them what they were asking for. You wanted to put them in the best situations that you knew that existed.
That's
right?
Exactly it. That's exactly it. And I said, okay, so
you didn't want to fill the order.
I know. And that's what I felt like I was doing. And I said, no, I need to do things differently. Well, I felt so in love with travel, though. And I learned tons of skills. I said, how can I travel the world for free and still kind of give people that cultural element of travel? And so when I travel, I always buy a few things that are kind of staple everywhere I go. And one of them is art. And so I said, well, if I can do marketing and sales in travel, why don't I sell art? So I get to travel the world and find these awesome artists, and I can sell art for people. And so I went in that direction. And that's kind of how the travel came to be,
And then something interesting. You decided on your own, I guess, to donate 10% of the art sales to local charities. So when did this whole social enterprising thing creep into your whole mindset?
I think as a kid, it was my dad. My mom told me to work my tail off. My dad told me to have compassion. And so
it's like the opposite, right? The dad's the one who's telling you to work your tail off. Your mom's like, hey,
well,
your mom was like telling you to work your butt off, and your dad was telling you to be compassionate. I mean, I'm just saying that's sometimes stereotypically that would be the opposite, right?
Yeah, but my mom is she's tenacious, and Sicilian women, that's what we are, right? And I hope I don't offend anyone with saying like that.
No, it's great. That's great. Yeah. But your dad is the one who encouraged you to do good for society.
Yes, he did.
Mom was like, go crush it. Go, okay.
That's right. And it was beautiful. It was just a really beautiful thing. And I said, what, if I'm making money, why not help someone? To me, it was just, there was never, why wouldn't you do that? Why would you keep all them? I never understood that. So I would give a percentage back, and that's how it started, right? And so it caught wind.
Was this in South America that you were donating to?
No, it was anywhere. So if I had an artist in, say, Italy, I would donate to a charity in Italy. If I had an artist in Latin America and in Argentina, I would donate in Argentina. So it depended where the artist was from, the artist would choose.
Okay. And so now how did you bump in? Okay. So I'm leaping along here. How did you bump into this orphanage in Argentina?
Right. Well, that was how it all happened, was through the art. And so I have obviously a lot of art all over my place, and not now, but I had a lot of art around, and I was doing a lot of charity work just for my father. And so I had the photos of children from Africa around my apartment. And at that point, I had, I don't know, we were going out somewhere, and I had a friend of a friend come over my apartment and said, "Oh, are you a missionary?" And I said, "No, I'm the furthest from that. I just completely renounced it." And she's like, "Well, my father has an orphanage in Argentina. Maybe you can help raise money for them." And at that point, Argentina was on top 3 of my list to travel to. And I heard Argentina, and that was it. And I said, "Yeah, give him my number." And, didn't think anything of it. Well, then 3 or 4 days later, he called me. Her father called me. And he's the founder of an orphanage in Argentina, and said, "Hey, we're going down there in 3 months. Do you want to go?" That was it. I fundraised and I left, and I went.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that changed. It sounds like that changed your life.
It did. It was 11 days, and it was you know, when you realize you're like, everyone knows they're here for something, right?
Yeah.
I think if you're in this, especially if you're watching this video, you know you have a call. You know that you are here to do something great. And I've always known it, but I don't think I ever nailed it on the head. You know, I didn't. And then when I went there, no idea what I'm getting myself into. And you meet these kids.
Yeah.
And I heard the stories.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. I was like, I have to do something. And at the vineyard, I went to a vineyard on a cultural experience 10 minutes away. And it was pure lush, luxury, gorgeous wine, gorgeous art. And I'm like, I need to bridge these two together. And the whole plan just it was as if it downloaded and I just had to do it. That was it.
Okay, so now that brings us right to, okay, so you're living in Tampa Bay, you know, primary residence, is that right? Okay,
Correct.
So you decide to launch a nonprofit, but you don't have any money, I'm guessing. All right, so the nonprofit is going to benefit. The nonprofit is going to benefit this orphanage, right, in Argentina, but you don't have any money. Pick it up there. Like, what's your plan? What's your plan at that point?
At that point, I went home. I had 3 other partners in this business, and I had said to them, I said, I know that I started this with you. Take it. I'm out. I'm gonna go. I gotta pursue this. Like, it was just such a deep passion inside of me, and we started. We started to say, okay, here's this business. You guys can take it. You know, I'm okay with it. And then I said, what do I do? I really had no idea what to do, but keep working. I actually kept working as a bartender. So Alan didn't say this, but I worked as a bartender. I started at 14 years old, totally illegal in New York, up until I was 28. So I bartended the whole time through.
By the way, quick interjection, Mark Cuban, just recently, a couple months ago, they asked him, like, if you lost everything, what would you do? And he said, I know I'll always be okay, because I would just go back to being a bartender and I would restart and build up everything, because bartenders make great money and you can always get work. Anyway, that was Mark Cuban a couple months ago, just saying that, right? So I feel like that. I mean, I'm not advocating everybody be a bartender. Not everybody can do it, whatever. But there is some power in that. Not only is it energizing and energetic, and it really pays well, and there's always, should be always, typically a job everywhere in any place in any city. And I'm just painting the upside to it, right? There's a lot of dark, downside to it, right? But it is one of those things that, but by the way, what I love about it is you're forced to be personable, you're forced to engage, use energy. So your energy, you can't escape the energy. So even if you're just doing that, you cannot, if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you will not be able to turn off the wheels that are turning, because you're talking to so many interesting people and ideas. It's be impossible to do your job and not have like idea generation. So
yeah.
Is that true?
I think what happened, so now as my own woman, I am actually quite an introvert. Now, you met me as a bartender, you would never ever assume I was an introvert. And it's funny, if anyone I know is watching this, they'll be commenting on Facebook about me being an introvert or an extrovert. But
the old Maria, the new Maria, right?
Something like that. But yeah, bartending is just one of those things. First of all, you need to, it's psychology. I mean, right? Even a restaurant server, it's psychology, it's marketing. You have to market something. You're selling them something, and I'm always trying to get the upsell so I get a better tip, right? I mean, there's always that. There was so much that we learned, and good and bad. But at the end of the day, yeah, I always had a job. I always made sure that there was money. So when I started this organization, I never ever thought to ask people for money. Like, no, I'm going to go earn it, and then I'm going to reinvest it. I'm going to earn it and reinvest it. That's just, and again, I think that goes back to my parents, right? You earn your money, you earn your keep, if you will, like not your keep, but in some sense.
You don't look for handouts. That's not, yeah.
No, but thankfully what that's done is it's created a willingness to work hard, and people seeing that, and they give you money. And they help you with resources. And I'll tell you that I have had people give of their talents and their treasures and time. I'm sometimes like, this is unbelievable how people are willing to give when they see you working just as hard. Like if I was out there just saying, hey, give me money, give me money, give me money.
That's right.
Yeah, I can get your money, but
Yeah.
at what point do they say, well, what work are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally. I got to add to that. First of all, we have a saying in the game of startups that you probably heard, but um, ask for money and get advice. Ask for advice, you get money, right? You probably heard that. Ask for advice, you get money. Ask for money, you get advice. And the other part of that, and I actually, I'm quoted on this 20, no, not 20, 10 years ago in a magazine on it. It was when I had one of my startups in the 2009, 2010 timeframe. The other piece of that is when you take the leap and you throw all your skin in the game and you burn your own boats and you are all in. And by the way, it's clear that you're going to do this with or without the help of anybody. All of a sudden, people want to help you.
That's right.
All of a sudden, people want to help you. Like they don't want to. Nobody wants to. Like nobody's compelled to help somebody that has a backup B plan that's kind of testing or trying something. They do, but it's not the same. You throw yourself all into something, and you're providing all the energy on it. People want to grab a hold of that and help it.
That's right.
It's like a law of the universe, right? And by the way, that sounds great, but you know what that requires? That requires you, and anybody listening, it requires you to go all in. So it's not like, so unfortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately, this little benefit we're talking about comes at a really big price. And that means you going all in first and then not expecting anything from anybody. And as soon as you go all in and you don't expect anything from anybody, then here comes the kind of the blessings, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I agree. That's so well put, Alan. It's funny, like as you're saying that, I'm thinking of all the people that did that when I said, I'm not going to wait. I have urgency. These kids my why. So, and all the people who are going to say, you're never going to make it. Oh, you need money. You need this, you need that. And I think what you mean by going all in, because sometimes, like I said, I bartended right up to 28.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 34, guys. So I just short while ago, I quit bartending. And then I still kept working a second job to fund and feed this. But, I think that there's something to be said, like, there was no plan B. Like I wasn't going to work for another company. That's why I don't have friends. I actually have some people that aren't my friends anymore because they kept saying, go work for a company, go work for a company. And it's like, do you not get it?
Yeah.
This is not about if I'm going to go work for a company or if I'm going to fail or succeed. This has no chance to fail. This will succeed.
Yeah.
And that's a conviction.
I've got a chapter in my book called Failure is Overrated. And I actually, this is one of the fun things I like to bring up and be controversial because there's so much talk of failure and learning from failure and be okay with failure. And it's kind of a thing in the entrepreneurial world right now. And I listen and tolerate and I'm respectful of that. And there is a lot of truth, but it's only true when you look back at failure that it's true. It's a true statement. But under no circumstances should an aspiring entrepreneur or someone who's trying to build something think for a second about failure. In fact, failure is not an option. And I write about it in my book. You should have a massive, massive fear of failure. It's going to, I hate to say it, people think I skew to the negative too much sometimes, but you should be waking up out of bed, not with joy, but with sheer panic. I'm sorry. People have to forgive me on this. Like you should be, if you're not waking up in the middle of the night or waking up in the morning with sheer panic to go get something done, to move something forward, I apologize, but you're not doing it right. And I hate to fear of failure is a big driver. People don't want to acknowledge this, but every entrepreneur that I study, and I feel like I've studied a lot, not only studied the famous ones, but know so many. I hate to say this, but most of the ones that make it to the other side and actually pull off something big, they were driven by a fear of failure. And I hate this, it sounds negative, but it's true. So you pick out something really big that you want to accomplish that's probably too big for you to chew off, and you put yourself in a real vulnerable position, the really, really out there on a limb that you have to fight your way to make it work. And maybe you and I didn't prep on that topic, but I've got to put that out there. I always go to this topic. I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, I'm very passionate about it. I think, again, there's two types of, and I think, again, everything, I believe if you're listening to this, you're one of those people who who knows they're destined for something huge.
Right.
And I think that's the pull of, it's not just an entrepreneurial thing. It's
That's what gets it started, right? That's what sets
right.
the thing in motion, right?
I had a fear of failure that was it was gripping, which is terrible. It actually gripped me. So I think that there's the healthy side of it, which motivates you. Like now I don't even think that's so not even not because I fear the failure. It's because I'm so confirmed and rooted. And this is not only my work, but this is God's work. I'm so rooted in that.
But would you agree, Maria, that just indulge me for a second, would you say, I mean, don't take these words wrong, but you have a bit of the luxury now because you actually got lift. I talk about like you got the plane in the air, but getting that plane in the air requires a massive amount of effort and a lot of ugliness and dirty, messy, scary stuff, right? But once you've got a little bit of lift, I'm not saying you're smooth sailing, everything's perfect, but then it is kind of nice to be able to like sit back and hit a couple knobs and start collecting yourself and go, you know what, that was scary as hell getting that off the tarmac and we almost all died. But because I was so gritty through that and it almost killed me mentally, physically. But now that we're up here, we don't have to act like crazy people trying to fight for our lives. We can relax. Let the airplane do its thing, and let's start being smarter. Does that analogy hold up for you a little bit? Because I don't think you can get an airplane off the ground with the lackadaisical, right?
No, and I think now I'm understanding after, I don't know how long I've been an entrepreneur, but I can say I'm just going to speak for these 8 years because my organization's going on. This year is our 8th year of existence, and I think these past 8 years, that's what you're talking about, is getting it off, especially as a nonprofit with zero funding, zero backing, no grants. To this day, I've not gotten one grant. And I think that, and that's not something to be proud of. I just think that it shows how hard it is to actually get it done. But now, I think we'll talk about it afterward about what it actually takes. Yes, it's really hard. Yes, I've had to learn the hard way, unfortunately. I what people say, like blood, sweat, and tears, quite literally, and I hate that kind of.
All three, blood, sweat, and tears, right? All three.
And not joking, right, about that, right? And some people just say it to like say it, and it's like we don't quite do. But I think, you get to a place where you're like, you know what, maybe that's not that important, and I'm going to focus on this, and you just become wiser. And I hope that this conversation and others like it will be able to say, hey, steer away from that. Like, don't do the same mistakes. Like really learn from this. And I wish I had someone younger when I was younger to say, listen, don't do that. I just wish I had that, and I'm hoping to do that for other people. I believe I will be a voice for people.
Well, the biggest takeaway I want to add to that, so the one offsetting caveat to that whole thing I said about how hard it is, and it's white knuckling, it's and all the things you went through, and you and I have talked offline about, the real pain and agony of that. The one thing that, and I know you're going to agree with this, that you can do to offset that, because it's all going to be hard. Getting that lift off, getting that thing off, impossibly hard. The only offsetting thing you can do, other than killing yourself personally, which is what you're saying, let's don't do, and most entrepreneurs do, is get as much help as you can. Did I just nail it?
Yeah.
Did I nail that? Right? It's really hard for the entrepreneurial type people to do that because we don't often naturally ask for help.
Right. And then we also think we can do it better than everybody else.
Yes. But, unfortunately, you got to admit, that entrepreneur, we still carry that. We have to fight it every day, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, but it takes, especially when you're going to do something. Again, I think I think that there's different entrepreneurs as well. Like you said, there's the 3 types, but I think we can go even further to that and say there's the solopreneur and the homepreneur, where maybe they're, gonna like make something out of petals and they want to sell it on Etsy and 40 grand a year is like amazing. And that's awesome. I mean, that kind of entrepreneur, that craftsman, that who is okay with, that's what they want. That's that is their definition of success, is fantastic. if that's what but it's still hard work, right? And it's still,
It's so hard because here's the thing. I love where you're going with this. It's a perfect segue to where you want to go on the show, and that is to help people out there that let's be honest, most of the people that are being thrusted into this bad economy, this tough economic situation, are mostly not going to be the natural entrepreneurial mindset people. Right. They're mostly going to be people that are being pushed into something that they're not comfortable with. And you're right, things like Etsy and Amazon and other freelancer.com and Upwork, there's all these places where they can take the skill that they already have, a talent or a skill they already have, and monetize that in a way that might start small and then maybe work from there. Maybe it can be a side business while they still have their job, or if they've lost their job, maybe they've got to build it up. But I really appreciate you taking it there, because there really is these kind of type A maniacal people, like honestly, like me and you in a way, like, yeah, right. Yeah. Like it's kind of, I like to tell people, just to disarm it, it's kind of a disease. I mean, honestly, like my wife would agree with that. And I talk about it in my book. I mean, we laugh, but it is, we can't stop it. It's this maniacal thing, right? But honestly, in today's world with the internet and all those platforms you just mentioned, people without the disease can actually, make great side income and can actually create businesses. And if you're really lucky, you can actually create a great company and not even be that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's a space for it, and more than ever before do we have that opportunity to really become a homepreneur and a solopreneur. But if you're looking for something like maybe what I'm trying to do, we're trying to service 700,000 orphans in one country, and then we will move to another country that has another 700,000 orphans. So like when you think of something like that versus, no, I just want an income for my family, and I want to, very different types of entrepreneurship, and not one is worse than the other. But I think that when you are looking for something maybe scalable or to go maybe to the nations and much bigger, the team is everything. And I think to have someone to coach you through that, like, how do you get teams? How do you build a team? How do you, and I think from there, it stems, what's your why? What's your movement? What's going to take you and propel you every morning? Will that why be enough to propel someone else to say, I like that, I'm in, That's right. And so it takes a lot of inner work, I think, as well.
Agreed. Your why, your inner work is absolutely critical. It's what will get you up out of bed in the morning. It's what will push you through difficult things, adversity. Because, by the way, let's just put it on the record, nothing goes right.
Yeah. No, what do you mean?
It's funny, you're looking at me like, duh, like you're just saying like that. Like, but I'm just telling you, people that haven't been down this entrepreneurial path, they don't understand that. Nothing works, nothing goes right. And by the way, the thing that you're selling, nobody buys. It's insane. Like the thing that you think, it's really the biggest thing I just can't stress enough. So you've got to be prepared that whatever you're thinking is going to be a real tough slog. And I don't care if you're doing stuff on Etsy, or if you're doing stuff, if you're trying to like stand out as a consultant on a copywriter or a writer or a graphic artist, it's going to be a lot harder than you expect. So the key is to get in the game. It's like the key is to get in the game and start putting one foot in front of the other. Start putting one foot in front of the other and move your way through it, and just keep moving through it. And eventually you'll crawl your way out of it and you'll be at another level, right? But most people don't realize just how hard it is. I don't care what level you're at. By the way, I'm checking some comments, and we've got some good ones here. So right now, Melanie says, it's challenging to know where to go for help because so many risk-averse people who will try to talk you out of it. And Art says you'll know not to listen to naysayers or those who are too positive. But I love what Melanie says here. She's so right. Boy, that's actually pretty freaking deep, because I feel like I'm very blessed in life. I have so many friends. I have so many people in my network and so many people that love me and care about me. And it's amazing. But it's, the challenge with that is people care about me enough to talk me out of things, right? They care about me to talk me out of things, right? Especially if they're not in my lane, like you mentioned earlier about, they don't understand. So I have to kind of like fight through that. And so what Melanie's saying there is very true. So and you alluded to it earlier, Maria, about the fact that you don't necessarily have the same friends today that you had 10 years ago. Maybe touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, Melanie, I saw that, and I saw your comment, and I knew we'd talk about it sooner or later. I think, the biggest thing is, remember I said about that there's failure. Listen, I have failed left, right, up, center throughout my whole journey in life, right? We all do. But I don't look at it as like failure. Like maybe my mom and dad may see it as failure because I didn't make money that year, where I see it as, okay, I learned this is not going to happen. Okay. So for me, failure is I define failure and success very different. So I think number
one didn't work. Now I'm going to change it, do something different.
That's right. And I think number one is defining what success is for you. Okay. So don't let society define what success is. Define it by your terms. For me, it's so much of, well, guess what? I get to be with my family whenever I want. I get to travel the world. I get to love on children that aren't my own, who've never felt love. That to me is success, right? Not a, $500,000 income and a huge home and multiple cars. That to me, I don't define success in that manner. So once you define success, if you start hearing people, that's not, that's not going to work. That's not here. That's not there. And they're not really fitting the mold of what you define as success, which for me, success is having friends around me and family around me that can guide me and support me. Well, you're now not a part of my success model, my success view. And so I need to get rid of that. I need to make sure that you're not a part of that. Not get rid of it because, you love people. You don't just, they're not disposable, right? But,
I would say compartmentalize.
Yeah, you put boundaries around it, and there's, and they're not going to understand. I'll tell you that right now. They will not understand boundaries, and they'll often, ridicule you or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, you got to be okay. And if it's, you got to learn to love these people no matter what, right? And so I hope that helps in any way. But if they're too positive, I don't know, because I saw Art say something about the positive side. I'm all good with positive, but I think I'm a part of a wealth management coaching system, and the coach always says something about the question is, what if I'm wrong? Like, you have to have risk management. So you need, if it's always positive, you need someone to say, well, hey, what if this doesn't work? Like, what if you're wrong? You need the both, I believe. So yeah, I think Art had mentioned that. And
so here's the thing: I've got the ability to turn on microphones and cameras for those that want to participate, right? But I'm not going to do that without permission. So Melanie, just so you know, there's a little in the right hand corner. There's a little hand raise status. So if you want to go on microphone and ask a follow up question to that, then please hit that little icon in the lower right hand corner for raising your hand, and I'll know that you want to turn on your microphone, and let's do it that way. We would love that, right? We just sit here talking to ourselves for a while. It's like when you hear somebody else talk back to you, it's like, oh my God, they're out there. They're really out there. It's really cool feeling. But I think while we let Melanie think about that, let's look at Michael. So Michael says, do you find that fellow entrepreneurs are the best to go to for advice to avoid risk-averse people? I want to take the first stab at that. The fellow entrepreneurs tend to be kind of overly, I would just go out, can sometimes tend to be overly, well, they're going to be overly, actually I have some that are overly negative because they're like, you're crazy to do this, like they know too much, or they're overly positive because they're early in the process. I would say that in my mind, I feel like, to what you said earlier, Maria, is just going to people who love you and support you no matter what, unconditionally. It's how I would look at it. People that love you and support you unconditionally is where I go to draw power, because I don't need anybody to over encourage me. I'm already self-motivated and it's already wired in me. I don't need anybody to tell me, and of course I'm a type A, right? So I don't need anybody to tell me that I should or should. I just need someone to love and support me unconditionally. That's just me personally. So Maria, take a stab at Michael's question.
So Michael, so I am on the opposite side of Alan. I have had beautiful friends and whatnot. I've actually not been, though, loved unconditionally, and I have not had support. I had to let go of family members. I mean, I didn't talk to my father for years. people, just no one ever, I could say ever, I said no one in this time period, no friend, no family member supported me in the decision to go for this as a nonprofit, and I would make no money for, and by the way, I'm still not making money, but I'm a nonprofit. And so I think that going to, when he says unconditional people, make sure you have that. If you have that, great. If you don't, like me, who didn't have that, I just straight up started praying. I said, God, I need people in my corner, and I need people who are going to get this. And thankfully I did. I got one person, he's my CTO now. And 4 years ago, I think it was 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, he's like, wow, this is pretty cool. And he stuck with it. And he was the only person who was like, you can do this, you can move forward. And I had a couple people here and there, they never stuck around, but a few people here and there. And I think that you can go to entrepreneurs, ask for advice, which is great. Alan, I've actually gone to Alan 2 or 3 times in these I've been 6 years, 6 or 7 years. And like, I've gone to Alan, and we weren't close, but I had a question that was relevant to his niche. And I think that's the idea, is if you can start finding these people and you have wise questions, it's great. If you just want to kind of like, can you be my mentor? Like,
yeah,
I need to be relevant, right? Relevant to that person. And then if they see that you're doing it and they ask, okay, I want to start talking to you more. Okay, that's one thing, right? But I think going to entrepreneurs is smart. I think for certain things, it's smart. Absolutely. By the way, you can always come to me. I'm filled with all sorts of mistakes that I've learned from. And I think that not having the unconditional is a part of, I think, my journey. And I think it's allowed me to speak to a lot of people who don't have that kind of support system. But I'll tell you what, the people who in my family who didn't support me, now I'm so proud of you. Now they've come to Argentina and seen and met my kids. Now they watch these kind of videos. Before it's like, what are you doing? You're talking to some like made up friend, like they don't understand that stuff. Right. So I think time will tell who's going to support you. But I think,
yeah, and I would say that people that care about you and love you are going to be concerned about you taking risk because they care about you, right? So it's normal that you won't. Sometimes the support you're not getting early is because they fundamentally either they kind of care about you, or maybe might even be a little jealous at a certain point because you're going to go do something really big and amazing. So you might get a little bit of the jealousy, or you might just get an over care. But at the end of the day, that's why your why is so important, Maria, right? Because your why just kind of transcends all of that and becomes the thing that you really fundamentally, external people cannot really matter when it comes to the entrepreneurial mindset. It just can't, right? It just can't. It's just calling your name. It's in you, and you have to answer the call, and you just have to deal with those external factors, whether they're supportive or not supportive. And then you got to start finding people that will actually be supportive, not necessarily overly positive or yes people, but people that are actually I like to use they believe in you. I think you got to believe in you, and if they believe in you, man, you can. If somebody believes in me, I can move. There's like nothing I can't accomplish when somebody believes in me. It's like a fundamental thing for me, right? Like it's like I will do anything to make good on that, right? It's a trigger, right? But let's talk about back to today's. First of all, I want to ask, by the way, again, please raise your hand. We would love to hear somebody weigh in with their microphone. Who's up for their microphone on this topic before we move on? Melanie, I would love it if you did. It would be great. And Art, you're out there as well. Let's hear from you if you're up for it. And then who else we have out there that might be willing to go on? Daniel threw out there, I have the Tiger King. You just got to hit that little raise your hand. What do we got here? Okay. Melanie, not sure how. Okay. Hey, Melanie, on the lower right-hand corner. All right. First of all, Melanie, what I'm going to do is I think I can turn you on. So I'm unlocking your microphone now. There's usually a little bit of a delay. And by the way, Melanie, this is Mel, not Melanie. Is this Mel? My friend Mel? Is this who this is?
Yeah, this is Melanie from Tampa, now in Denver.
I saw, you know why? Because I see you're in Colorado Springs on the thing, and I said, wait a minute, I know a Melanie in Colorado Springs.
That's great.
Yes, yes. This
All
has
right.
been great. And I just, as it relates to the topic, yeah, I think that the hardest thing for me is finding the right support network, right? So I did the solopreneur thing for about a year and a half, and then ended up joining up with the corporate world, and I've been there ever since, but haven't lost my drive to want to get back to my entrepreneurial spirit. I think I'm trying to, at this point, figure out what that looks like. I think solopreneur was a little bit lonely for me. I think that could have been overcome if I had, the right network. I didn't have the right network around me. Alan notwithstanding, he was there, but otherwise I had a lot of people who, not necessarily even naysayers, but just not in a position to give real support where I really needed it. And I think that's the challenge, is finding that network that can offer the kind of support that you really need. Not that they were not well intentioned, but
yeah, you know what my big takeaway on that, Mel, is this whole idea of digging your well before you're thirsty. I think the big takeaway I have on that is just it takes a lot of runway. That's why I'm hoping to inspire people to get started when they're in a secure job or they're in a place of security, to actually start working on this, knowing that you need 18 months to 2 years, ideally, to build up the kind of people in your life that are going to ultimately be there for you. Because when you do make that step out, to your point, Melanie, like if you don't have, if everybody's not kind of like there ready to catch and support, it not only can be lonely, but you find that it's slim pickings. It can be slim pickings, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you had, by the way, Mel, you had some really amazing, you still do, you had some amazing people that you knew, that you have relationships with, but maybe the buildup, if I were coaching someone today, then, we would probably have you build towards that on the side and just keep building kind of a following and a support network before you actually made the leap, right? Would you agree with that, Mel? That would be the ideal way to do it?
Yeah, I think for me, my network was a blessing and a curse, right? So I had this entrepreneurial network that was built off my position in academia as the assistant provost. And the people that I knew were connected with UT. Yeah. And it was very hard for them to see me in another box. So it was always, well, how are you connected to the center? How are you, it was always this Mel as an academic versus, hey, I'm trying to do this thing that looks totally different, and I'm going to a new box. You've got to see me in this new box. And I felt like even the great people I had couldn't really wrap their mind around my own transition. Maria, I know it was a side comment about introvertedness versus extrovertedness earlier, but I laugh because I call myself an extroverted introvert. So I can be out and I can do all those things, but my batteries have to recharge by myself. But it's the same, idea back to the network thing. It's, putting people into a particular box or mindset. It's really hard for other people to see you in a different light. And then be able to shift the way that they interact with you and how they can help.
Absolutely. I mean, Melanie, I was the party bartender, turned founder of a nonprofit for orphans.
Right. I love it. I love it so much. Yeah.
I completely get it. I completely understand. But yeah, Melanie, I'd love to chat offline, and if you have any ideas, then
Melanie is great. Awesome. Melanie, I'm so glad you said she is awesome, and she's now closer to you than she was before, because she's now in Colorado. So and Melanie, I wanted to say again, if we were giving advice to people out there, the fact that you felt a little pegged in the academia world and your network was a blessing and a curse, more the reason that someone, more the reason why someone should get started while they're in their job, building their brand separately, or their product or their company, and you take as much runway as possible during that period, so that when you do make that move, you don't have maybe the problem that you had where you were kind of pegged and known as one thing, but you were trying to be something different.
Yeah, absolutely. No, right? I think that's absolutely true.
And that's hindsight 2020. That's all that is, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
Right,
I
right.
just like, decided to build wings on the way down, but it was a great learning experience. But
No,
I
it's
landed on my
awesome.
feet.
Mel,
That's,
thank you for chiming in here. Is there anybody else want to raise their hand? That little
there's a
down
few
there
people.
in the chat
Michael,
box, a little type your message. There's a little hand icon. All you have to do is click it, and then we know that you want to weigh in here.
I
So,
think, Michael raised his hand.
oh, he did. Cool. Michael Norberg. Is that right? Okay, cool. Michael, I just unlocked your microphone. Let's see if you come in strong. Give it a shot.
Maybe.
Right. Hey, Michael, are you there? Maybe. Hey, Michael, you there? All right, I'm gonna keep looking. All right, hold on. Anybody else? Okay, so cool. Anybody else want to like weigh in here with some questions or comments? Hey, Maria, while we wait for that, you and I had something else prepared, right? So we wanted to talk about what people can do in this economy. So I want you to walk through. Well, first of all, I'm going to jump into this next slide. This economy. Okay, so we've had a great conversation. This conversation we just had, we could have had 3 months ago, right? Because it's basically these are fundamental things of entrepreneurship.
Correct.
But hold the door. Hold the door. We have a very serious economic situation unfolding around us right now. So talk about this slide because you did a little research on this, and I want you to walk us through it.
Yeah. So I have been another one of Tampa's incredible businesswomen, Chelsea Drinkard. She's been a really powerhouse. She's been a powerhouse in my life for several years. I was a co-leader with her. She leads Christian Businesswomen Connect in Tampa. It's called CBWC, and she and I helped her co-lead for a couple of years. And she just always had this tenacity and drive. She's an entrepreneur. Okay. So she had this tenacity and drive to like want to learn more, especially when it came to finance. And so we were always reading these really cool books and financial freedom and all this good stuff. And she always felt like at a disadvantage as a woman, like she didn't know stocks. She didn't know about investments. So I love research and the analytical entrepreneur, right? That's me. So give me some data and I just like eat it up and I want to learn more. And so as she was telling me about, the financial world, I was like, I've been investing since I was 18, but I just kind of do it. I just put money in the stock market and that's it. And when she started bringing that up, she really piqued my interest and she started learning under I'm not sure if you're familiar with Danny Johnson. She's a business coach. She's phenomenal. Another phenomenal entrepreneur. Her husband, Hans, started this wealth risk management kind of coaching. And so I joined that because Chelsea was a part of it. And I saw her in the past couple of years go from, I know nothing about stocks and investment hedges, all this good stuff, to this chick, she knows what she's talking about. Okay. And yes. And she knew what she was talking about. And I was like, how did she do that? Like, how did she figure this one out? Right. And so she told me about Hans, and Hans Johnson is my wealth management coach right now. And what I'm understanding and what I'm learning is just do the work, do the research, just like a business. Let's look at history. Let's look at so if we were going to open a business, I would look at right now, for me, it's wine, right? So we'll talk about that some other time. But I looked at, well, what's the trajectory of wine drinking? What's the target audience? How big can the audience be? You do this research. So it's the same thing with the economy. And so I want to learn more about stocks. I want to learn more about what's happening in this world. And I'm seeing certain trends. And so I'm starting to, my eyes are kind of open, and it's like this virus and what's happening with the government and all this money going out. And well, what's going to happen because of that? Is there anything in history that's somewhat similar that we can look at and say, wow, this may be happening to us soon? And so I did some research, and some of that stuff, most of this is based on the early 1930s research. And it's really interesting. So let's say this is over in a month, just like most of our politicians are saying. But let's ask the question, what if we're wrong? What if this isn't over in a month? What if this isn't over in 6 months? What happens? So I think we need to start asking each other, ourselves these really hard questions that say, like, well, what if our politicians are wrong? What if it's not going to only last for a couple of weeks? And I'm not just talking the virus, but I'm talking the economical situation and the impact, right? So that was really interesting to me. And what I found was, when I went back to some historical data, we can find some incredible opportunity and incredible figures to look at. And so here you'll see this name, Floyd, right? Oldham. And Floyd is like, nobody knows him. Nobody really knows him. But he was an investment banker, and he's like, something's going on in the 1920s, late 1920s. He started looking at the stocks, and they were just kept going up, 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 and up. And he's like, they can't keep going up forever. So he took his money out, made a fortune. Sure enough, everyone knows the Depression happened. He made a fortune, cash heavy. And what happened was, as the economy tanked, he was able to become the wealthiest top 10 in the world, I believe, because he became cash. He thought cash. So I just think that we as entrepreneurs mindset, we need to look to our history, and we need to say what worked and what can work for us today. Whether it was the Great Depression or the Great Recession, we have really incredible tools for us to look at. And so I'm taking Floyd as this opportunity to say, why don't we sell what we can? If there's like extra, junk around our house, let's just declutter, make as much cash as we can. Like, can you freelance on the side? Can you babysit for those two parents who work from home now and they have to take care of their kids? What can we do? And so same thing I wrote, we have here farmers and the theaters. The theaters are a big thing. Nobody can go in big crowds right now. But what we can do is look at the theaters and what they did in marketing back in the 30s when no one had money to go to the theater. What did they do to stay afloat? And what they did was just so unique, and they thought outside the box, and they thought about their target audience. And so I think we're challenged in this particular economy to say, well, what if we're wrong? And what if this is much bigger than we think it is? How can we start to market differently? How can we become advocates for something else? How can we make more cash now? Because guess what? If we are wrong and this does last longer, we can look to our historical references and say, this is going to be the opportunity of a lifetime for our entrepreneurial mindsets. This is going to be the opportunity that we've waited for, and that what we were created for is this time now. And
that's right. I wanted to add to that. Yeah, I think the big takeaway I have from that is, again, back to digging your well before you're thirsty. The idea that use this opportunity, if you have any security at all, use this opportunity to work on laying the groundwork for something that could sustain you in more difficult times, right? By the way, cash is a big part of that, but laying the groundwork for a new business, right? Or a new business, whether it be a side business or something that could be bigger. And because, like you said, Maria, like if this thing is longer and worse than we expect, you're going to need runway. We talk about it with startups all the time. It's called runway. It's called lead time, right? There's big things, hard things. They don't happen. You don't snap your fingers. You need multiple months to lay the groundwork for anything of substance that you might want to launch, right? Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So you want to lay that groundwork, because like you said, if you are wrong, if it is worse than we expect, whatever you do today is actually going to directly correlate with what you have in 3 to 6 months from now.
And think about 3 to 6 years, right?
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. Right.
Because that's even short-term thinking, right? And if we're not wrong and everything is cleared up in a couple of weeks and months, well, great. Now you have extra cash. Get that. Now you can invest in, maybe market content or, some extra advertising. And so I think that it's a win-win when you really think in that mentality of, well, what if I'm wrong? And I want to definitely credit Hans Johnson on that, because he really got that in me to say, well, if I'm wrong, well, what do I need to do today, right? Like, what do we need to do today as entrepreneurs to fix that? And how do we also make business models that won't crumble under a 10% correction in the market, or that will crumble at a recession. Let's start thinking like that. And I think if we can think like that as an entrepreneur, we create more solid foundation. Like you said, that takes several months to create anyway. Just take a week or two and say, well, what would happen if we got into a recession? Would my business fail? Am I too reliant on debt? Am I too, what does that look like? And I think now is a great, more than ever, time to look at these options and see the products and how consumers spend their money when there is a down market. We were on a huge run for so many years. Just things to think about,
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm. Hey, Michael, I turned your microphone back on. Let's give you another shot because you texted that you tried, but didn't work. So your mic is back on. Let's see if it works. Go ahead. Hey, Michael, any luck? Any luck, Michael? Hey, there you are. Yes.
Can you hear?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Number 2.
Okay, we hear you. Go for it, man.
Perfect. I had a few. First question we kind of passed by, but I guess now that we're talking about finances, a lot of people have a bad relationship with finances, thinking more money is bad and stuff. Running a nonprofit, have you had similar struggles with the mindset around money?
I think you just opened a can of worms. So that's a great question, Michael. So at first, I think if you understood you understand a little bit about my background. Work hard for what you want. I mean, I worked 2-3 jobs since I was forever an age. The only reason I opened a nonprofit was to show people, because it was a stigma that society gives, that technically you can't do good or humanitarian work unless you have a .org. Okay. Now you just push something inside of me. I don't know if you can feel that, right? And so
somebody's been triggered.
Someone's been triggered. Yeah. And so the .org status gives you all of a sudden some sort of clout that you do good. And what we've noticed in the past is that unfortunately nonprofits, whether they have a .org and a 501c3 and all that technical stuff, they cheat people just as much, if not, as regular businesses. However, they have the tax implication, all that good stuff. But they're a .org, so they're a humanitarian. Unfortunately, what I found was in the nonprofit sector, and I speak about this, I've done public speaking on this topic particularly, that unfortunately nonprofits are held to a really, really, what's a good word for this? Unrealistic standard of business. We're expected to save the world and yet make no money doing it. And I'm not saying profit. I'm saying we're overhead. Everything is overhead. And we have to keep our overhead, our human resources, our advertising dollars, our marketing, our way to reach the target audiences, our donors, at the lowest possible. So I have had a really tough time as a businesswoman. In my core of core, I'm a businesswoman, having a nonprofit and having to deal with this social mentality of, well, you're not supposed to be making money anyway, but go save those children, go feed those children, yet I can't feed myself. So I've had to really turn it up and take that financial, and your question is do I struggle with the money part? No, I don't struggle anymore, but I used to. And now it's, okay, I've started my for-profit and no one's going to tell me what I can and can't do with that money. 50% goes to my nonprofit, but the other 50% will feed me and will feed my coworkers and colleagues. And I see things very differently in the for-profit and nonprofit world, unfortunately. And I think that as an entrepreneur, I had to solve that problem. And I believe that our for-profits will solve that problem for many nonprofits across the globe one day.
Awesome. Your question. Michael, follow-up question. Michael, follow-up question to that, or you're good?
No, well, I guess, so that's from your perspective. Do you have groups of other nonprofits that kind of feel the same way? Because I think I'd want to go towards the nonprofit.
Just so you know, real quick, Cal Tiger, who's a friend of mine here in the Clearwater, he writes, I totally agree with this .org business. In fact, I donated 1,000 worth of computers to a local nonprofit recently and found that they just turned around and sold it as scrap. I think most of these 501c3s are a scam. Pretty strong statement. Thanks. We're just getting out there, just putting it out there. Thanks for bringing this up, right? And Cal, we're going to mention what I know. Cal, it's good stuff. So back to your question, Michael. What's your follow on to that?
Yeah, sure. I guess because you've now started a for-profit and nonprofit. The for-profit's the one that makes money. Is there anything you can do as an individual to kind of make a dent to change that stigma that nonprofits have to make no money? Like your nonprofit can actually make a profit, and then the profits just go to good things.
Okay, so how it works, thank you, Michael. So how it works is nonprofits can make money. What it is at the end of the year, they have to have a zero balance. So they can't make any profit left over. So what we're expected to do, so let's say today, Michael, you decide to make a donation to my nonprofit of $1 million. Okay. I have to take that $1 million and I have to decide, as the founder and the CEO of this nonprofit, I have to decide what to do with this $1 million. Me, as an entrepreneur, I take that $1 million. I would take 500,000 of it and I would put it to advertising to quadruple my money. I would take the other $500,000 and put it toward program development. Let me ask you, if news networks found out that I took $500,000, 50% of your donation, and took it and advertised with it to go make more, they would tear me to pieces. Because Absolutely. I'm not a nonprofit, they would tear me to pieces. So as consumers, as donors, I keep switching the two. As donors start donating wisely and they start thinking like, hold on a second, my $1,000 instead of $1,000 in computers, if I said, take this $1,000, sell it and put it in advertising, make 10,000 with it. Now we're talking capacity building. Now we're building the opportunity for a nonprofit to take $1,000 and make $100,000 with it instead of $1,000 of feeding food. Why don't we take $1 million that we just made from advertising because we invested our money, and we can feed how many more kids, right? I think we need to shift that mentality, and I think it's, instead of looking for charities of how much does your dollar go, Dan Pelota, that's a name that I really want to throw out there. Dan Pelota is one of our forefathers and pioneers in this conversation that we're having. We need to start asking, what's the impact versus how much of my dollar is going to the program? Because that's insulting. I still 8 years and I don't have a salary. Okay. I've had to work up until June of last year.
Quick interjection. Melanie One gets credited right now. She's Melanie One. She's the second, but she threw out Dan Pollock early, like way back.
Yeah, I saw that. And I was wondering.
She said she mistyped it. So we got to give Melanie credit, right?
Yeah. Dan Pelota. And he's, I've spoken with him before. It's just a really big issue, especially in today's economy where we're competing with Facebook ads and Google ads. And I lied. We did get one grant. It's not cash grant, but it's a Google advertising grant. I'm competing. They give me $10,000 a month. I don't even get 4,000 or 5,000 of it, sold ads, because we're competing with businesses who pay for ads and they get top slots. So as wonderful as this grant is, and we're actually now having a better conversion rate because we're doing things right. If we don't start to think as donors, hey, you know what? Take this $10,000 and I don't want you to spend it on the program. I want you to spend it on advertising. I want you to spend it on marketing. That's what I'm saying. And again, even fundraising can be is the ROI there? We need to start thinking more like a business.
Like business people.
I've had people say, why don't you throw more events? I'm like, do you know what the ROI on that is? I lose money every time. We lose money every time. What's the point? Because all the other all the other nonprofits are doing it.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense to me. I have to start thinking, what's my ROI? What's the acquisition cost of a donor?
Right.
That's any sensible for-profit business. That's the only thing you're thinking of, right? Is what's my acquisition cost?
That's right.
So, I think, Michael, as a donor, say, hey, I want this to be, and you know what you could use their language. I would like this to be a restricted donation, and I want it to go to capacity building. Pay more for your CEO. Get better advertising. Make it to build the company instead of the program.
Right.
I hope that helps.
Right. No, that's beautiful. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael, for for miking in. We appreciate that. And you were getting some more amens, preach-ons from Melanie earlier. Both Melanies is, I don't know if it's the same. I got Melanie 1. It might be the same Melanie. I'm not sure, which will be interesting to find out. And been very much triggered. By the way, this is going to be a great way for us to segue to the final 10 minutes here, which is about, because it's already been asked about once, which is, it's the same Melanie. She got kicked off. It's the same. It is that's hilarious. So this is a beautiful tee up to the wine club, because, all right, so let's talk about the wine club.
I'm like giddy about it.
Yeah.
So what's really cool, we think about entrepreneurship, and I think this whole, we're all on here for one reason, is, how do we start? As I'm starting, who's my network? How can I build a network, and, all that good stuff. And so as a nonprofit, we're here to solve the problem, for me, to solve the problem of youth orphans, okay? They end up on the street, 98% of the time they become a statistic. So what's the solution, right? So we come up with the solution. That's our nonprofit side. Then the nonprofit comes up with their own slew of issues that we need to solve. Funding. As a small nonprofit, no backers, no churches that back me or anything like that, formally back or any of that. So how do we get funding? So not only do I have to create a program, implement the program, now I need to fundraise as well. And as a solopreneur, homepreneur, now I have to put my entrepreneur hat and say, wait a second, something's not working here. I need to fix this. So in Argentina, that's where we're stationed, and that's our headquarters. I said, what is it that the donors do, right? Donors, the highest percent, the highest majority of donors, the target audience that we go for, they're the 1% to 2% in society that give the most to nonprofits. And so we said, well, what do they want on the consumer side? Well, travel, wine, they golf, they play tennis, they all sorts of stereotypical stuff that we can come up with, right? I mean, it's the stereotype for a reason. And so, Argentina, we happen to be in Mendoza, Argentina. It develops incredible wine. So Malbec, Pinot Noir, Cab Franc. And so after 8 years, throughout these 8 years, I've developed incredible relationships, because what we teach our aged out orphans is skill-based training in hospitality and tourism. So winemaking, chef, gastronomy, furniture making, tourism, event planning. So these and accessory design. So as I'm creating this program, I'm also developing incredible relationships with hoteliers and winemakers. So I said, this fundraising thing isn't working. It's not sustainable for me. I'm going crazy. And in fact, I had 2 severe, come to
health issues.
Health issues, yeah, and most recently last year. And so I developed a program about 4 years ago where we would take the wine from Argentina, put a label on it, co-brand it, and co-create, particular blends, and we would sell it in the U.S. Unfortunately, there's a 3-tier system in the U.S. that you would need extremes amount of investment to get into the U.S. Thankfully, things have started to turn around. Now we can go direct to consumer. I never, ever gave up this dream. I kept working on it. It just wasn't the time. And that comes back to being an entrepreneur. It was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. And so I didn't cry like a baby and take it as a failure. I said, okay, it's not the time. And I have a team I can't do any of this without them. Yes, I put this wine together, but without this team taking it to market, there's nothing, right? And so now we developed a wine club where we go direct to consumer. Our wineries are now, we're going to start a little different than what we had originally thought, but we have wine from Argentina, Spain, Portugal, and our first wine case will be mixed from those, and 50% of our profit goes to our program. We're going to be feeding a lot more families because of the crisis. So we're going to be doing a lot of disaster relief, as well as continuing our mentorship program for our orphaned youth. So I thought recession proof. I thought no matter what happens, people are going to be drinking. No matter what happens, people are going to want things delivered to their home. Yes, it's a small portion, but it keeps growing year after year, right? Well, now look at, no one's leaving their homes. Everyone wants to drink. Everyone's having happy hours on the computer at home. So it's like ding, ding, ding. But we were ready for this opportunity. And sure enough, thank the Lord, we're not in debt, and we have no debt, as well as our nonprofit. Yes, we don't have loads of money, but we also don't have loads of debt. We don't have loads of, expense. So we're not hurting. We don't live on credit cards. And I think that this is why I think I implore you guys, get your cash, get out, as soon as you can get out of debt, but get that cash up, because the opportunities are going to be raw and real.
Lower your cost basis so that you can have more cash.
Yeah. Don't live the way society keeps telling us to live, because I think it's very overrated. And you could tell we had a 10%, Hans always says this, we had a 10% correction, and like everyone flipped in the market. It was just a 10% correction. And it was like the crash, of 29. And it's like, wait, it was only 10%. It went back to what it was in 2018. Why is everyone flipping out? They're flipping out because they're living above their means. It's all credit. It's all, they're at the top of their level. They're over leveraged. And so I just say, as an entrepreneur, remember where we started, really frugal. How do we do this ourselves? Teach ourselves skills that maybe we could hire out one day when we get there. But that's the wine company now. It's humanitywineco.com. We're not fully launched yet, but you can actually go there and put in your email, and you're going to get, we're going to be giving a crazy deal for anyone that's coming from here. But it's not up yet, but you'll get to see a little bit of what we're about. And thanks, Alan. And you'll see how, as an entrepreneur, that didn't happen overnight. People are going to be like, oh, she came up out of nowhere. I love when that happens, right? Like,
yeah, of course, overnight success. Hey, right. Cal, I promised I'm going to turn your mic on. Cal raised his hand earlier per my request. And I didn't even notice. I don't know when I got to learn. I'm still learning my platform. So, hey, Cal, are you out there? Your mic is lit. So let's hear from you. Yep, we hear you. Briefly, we hear some wind in the background, so we know you're close. Cal, you there? Oh, he said, wait a minute. Cal? All right, Cal, we may have missed you, but I got your mic on, just FYI. I'm going to give you one more shot here. Okay. Well, we are coming up at the 8:30 mark. This is we're right on schedule. Anybody else want to throw a comment? Okay, Mike, DeLucia, Mike, you've got a comment. You're writing right now. I can see you're typing. I just want to scan these comments. They're pretty cool. Ken says 501c3 is just a tax designation. It has nothing to do with mission or moral compass. If your mission is doing good, let that be your lead. That's awesome. Thank you, Ken. That's pretty awesome. And then Mike says he can't wait. So that's pretty cool. Everybody's got the link here. So Maria, this has been a tour de force. Like, my God, I don't think everybody was ready. I don't think they were strapped in tight enough for this one.
I don't think I was ready.
I don't think they were ready. This is recorded on the Click Meeting platform. Everybody's going to get an email with the recording, but I also have it up on my YouTube channel tomorrow at some point, and for posterity, so we can have it, and I'll make sure that you have that and so forth. But this is cool. There's a few people that want to connect with you. First of all, Melanie can't wait to connect with you. So I hope you talk tomorrow to Melanie. If anybody else wants to connect with Maria, please drop in the chat right now. I want to see that. Just say, hey, I'd like to connect with Maria. Just write that in the chat if you would. That would mean a lot. That way Maria can know who wants to connect with her. I know Melanie wants to for sure. Looks like Michael's writing, and Mike and Cal, all three are. That's good. Let's see what you got. Cool. Cal says he's back. Cal, you worked. Your mic is still on, Cal. If you're still there. So if Cal, if it's working, if not, that's great. So Michael Norberg says he's absolutely going to link. He's going to message you on LinkedIn. You're going to talk to Mel. and then of course Mike DeLucia.
Hi, Mike. So
yeah.
good to see you.
Maria, this has been awesome. I feel like I'm on a roll here. I don't know how my future guests can even compete with what we're doing.
I love it.
I feel bad. I feel bad when I share this stuff to my future guests because they're like, "Oh my God, like I gotta like live up to this." Like, so I'm like, well, that's good. Just
I
keep.
went to all your other ones. They were pretty amazing.
Yeah. Right.
But that's really everyone's story, right? Everyone has their own story, and everyone can glean from all the little bits.
Absolutely. So thank you, Maria. I think we're gonna sign off here again. Like I said, the recording is gonna be up soon, and you can, and a lot of new folks are gonna want to connect with you. Looks like Leslie said she's already in your LinkedIn box.
I'm excited to meet everyone and chat. Thank you, and happy Resurrection Sunday. I know it's holiday we're coming up on, so
that's right.
Enjoy it. Thank you, Alex, for everything. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
And thank you, Maria, for being so in my corner and supportive of me for even from a distance. And like I said, your little notes during when I was writing my book, I wasn't getting many of those, and in fact, zero. And I got like a couple from you during that period. It really meant a lot because so many people reach out to me in my role, like want something this, they want something that, and it was just really cool to get a note that says, "Hey, didn't want anything, just wanted to encourage me." That just honestly meant a lot. So.
Of course, man.
Okay.
You're doing great things.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Good night. Good night to you, and good night, everybody.
Ciao.